I think what I would love to do is, we want to start with, a few basic questions about introductions. So, Kanika, let's start with you. Would love to know a little bit more about you, what you do, and what's your background? Go on.
Thanks, Hamza. Such a great opportunity to be here and amongst all great folks here. And for everyone who does not know me, I've been with LinkedIn for around 6 years and I'm an engineering manager. I worked for LinkedIn Talent Solutions and specifically, working on launching the hiring agent, which is the latest launch that we are really excited about. And yeah, that's about me. I will ping pong it to Josh for introductions.
Hi, I'm dialing in from lovely San Francisco. Glad to be here, floating in the sky. But anyways, Josh Sutton, SVP of Innovation. My role at 66 Degrees is I think deeply about the human to agent framework, and what that means is everything that we talk about in the engineering of systems is actually how do I tether humans at scale to machines and agents at scale to formulate some sort of nested outcome. So I think about the protocol, the formulaic approach, as well as the engineering approach, balanced by the psychology of this. I serve the Fortune 500, and I've had about 2,000 implementations, large scale AI in the ecosystem. Who's next? Marcus.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Marcus Egan. I work on a product called Native Link. It's open source. It's on GitHub. It allows people to build agents that interface with the operating system or with direct hardware access. So we target a lot of companies building in the edge, like mobile phones, mixed reality headsets, vehicles, but also browsers are a very popular use case for us. So we work with pretty much every company you can think of that builds a custom browser. We accelerate the compilation of that through just parallelism and caching, but we use agents a lot in our workforce, and our customers, many of whom are among the most innovative, also use agents heavily. Like our last release and our upcoming release, which is today, were both built by agents. So like I don't know how we have review agents and things, but like the releases are made basically by the agents.
Awesome. Awesome. And Jake, we know we've had you just now. So I'm gonna skip on your introduction. So I'm gonna it's just think of this as a fire rapid round where we're gonna ask questions and we want to get feedback or thoughts. So Kanika, let's start with you. So for you, the question I have is how does LinkedIn approach responsible deployment of AI agents at scale, particularly in user-facing environments?
Very important question, Hamza. So, like I said, that the agents that LinkedIn deploy are essentially a digital double to LinkedIn members, to recruiters, helping them or interfacing directly with the outside world to help them work better and faster. So, responsible AI is something that we take very dearly and closely to our heart. At LinkedIn, we follow strictly Microsoft Responsible AI standard, as well as we are compliant with all legal AI acts. We have heavily invested into this centralized responsible AI team whose sole function is to ensure that any AI solutions that we are deploying, they always put members first, they uphold the trust, they ensure equity, inclusion, and diversity. And when we think about responsible AI, it basically goes in all steps, right from designing an AI solution to making it production ready. Very basic pointers here, like when we think about designing an AI solution, some strict compliance rules that we follow on our side is we always, there has to be a human in the loop. Like an agent cannot make any autonomous decisions or critical decisions by itself. The other important areas that we look at is like strict tool usage and no hallucination policy, which is like any thinking that you do needs to come from an authorized knowledge source from APIs that will always return deterministic data. Besides that, since, like I said, an agent is like a digital double for a user, any data access is strictly controlled by the authorization policies that that user has. The agent cannot access any other data. Besides that, this is during the design time, right? And then, of course, we are talking about monitoring and observability and ensuring governance. But besides that, when we are getting ready for the production launch, there's huge strenuous testing and red teaming exercises that we do at LinkedIn, where we are giving trust and safety scores to all our models. And as part of that, we are essentially testing the agents or the models for quality, fairness, safety, privacy scores. Any learnings from that is implemented immediately through the engineering, prompt engineering or content filtering with respect to how we take the prompts in or even how we show the data. And there's central infrastructure for this. And it's continuously evolving as we work closely with our legal and compliance team. So yeah, a lot of things, but I hope that helps explain like how we think through responsible AI right from design to production launch and through every stage. Like even after launch, we are continuously monitoring and tracking the performance of our models across all these high quality and trust parameters.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. Josh, question for you. Where do you see the most transformative opportunities for deploying agent in internal operations, customer engagement, or data intelligence?
It's a good question. Honestly, you got to look at it by industry, and there's a lot of reasons they're at different stages. Let me give you an example. Healthcare, for example, external AI or agentic, experience with patients was just not on the rise. It is right now, and so and I think tonality and sentiment and kind of an adaptability is allowing customers or patients to trust the system. And so you'll see in healthcare, external AI is rising faster than internal operations is using it for clinical judgment. And I think there's a whole other spectrum of issues relative to clinical judgment where we're just not going to allow AI to function in that space. Now, if you were to talk retail started predominantly external. There's conversational commerce. Now there's agentic commerce, and it's kind of shifting to the agentic properties. But there's a balancing act within retail, for example, where there's kind of agentic retail or let's call it supply chain operations or agentic merchandising from a planning point of view. And so I will tell you this: what's an interesting pattern, no matter where these industries are in terms of application, is that there's an agentic proxy. And so as there's an external AI strategy, touching your customers with AI, internal operations is using kind of an operative agent with inside of work process in a dynamic team, for example. And now there's actually a third tier, which is called an agentic proxy, where I'm actually extending my operative, function, changing the dynamic experience for customers. So there's actually three tiers now that we see happening, creating cohesion between what we would consider separate AI uses. And so they're kind of blurring together. So in other words, what I'm saying is there's a rise in operations in these industries. There's actually a rise in those operative agents affecting the customer experience agents, for example.
Wow, I think that's a very solid answer. And it shows the experience of the industry, how these things have been coming up. So building on that, Marcus, for you, from your experience with infrastructure startups, what are the biggest architecture differences between how startups and enterprise deploy agents, or what have your experience been in these areas?
Yeah, I think startups don't have a lot of the processes in place that the enterprises have, and they often are further along on the maturity curve of automation. by necessity, right? So we work with, when I was at MongoDB, every single release required the SVP of engineering to sign the tag. It's ridiculous. It's like, why does the SVP of engineering need to sign this tag? And so I see a lot of startups, they just don't have unlimited people. And so, like I mentioned, I work with startups like AWS uses Native Link, Alibaba's Aliyun Cloud uses Native Link. Like internally, they use Native Link. They don't offer it as like a managed service. They use the product, and like the startups are much further ahead on the path of automating and handing work to agents by necessity, just because they have to move so fast. Otherwise, who knows what could happen to them? Velocity is their only advantage over the bigger companies. That's the big difference.
So, Jake, building on what Josh and Marcus said, I have worked at Walmart for 6 years. My background is I was one of the first 7 data scientists that were ever hired in 2015, and we grew that team from 7 people to 300, 200 people when I was leaving, and then now I think it's at 300. How do you maintain innovation and velocity and deployment at a scale of Walmart?
And you're specifically talking about kind of the AI agentic development, or in general, innovation at the software?
I want to say let's talk about the AI, the agentic stuff, and how it's being taken and processed.
Yeah. So luckily, this has got support all the way from the CEO on down now. Like you can go and see talks that he's made about, the super agent strategy that Walmart is having, of having, one frontline agent interface for every different persona that interacts with Walmart as a company. So all customers and members of Sam's Club and international and US and Flipkart and everything else, they all go through one agent to do customer service, shopping, everything they want to do. Every partner goes through, if you're an advertiser or a seller or some sort of a supplier, they all go through one kind of channel thing. If you're an internal associate, you all go through one. So this super agent strategy kind of provides one place for customers, people in general. Every person is a given persona, and you don't have to get confused of like, oh, do I use this application to this application to this page? That just go to the one place you need to go. And then that thing needs to figure out where to direct your call as it is. So your real question is, how do you get innovation at the level of all the 10,000, 30,000 different developers building agents, not all of whom have any data science background, and they're building now agents, just wiring them into these super agents. Developing them rapidly is actually not the hard part. That part is remarkably enough like happening very quickly. Like people, we don't have a lot of tight constraints. We don't say you have to use LangChain, you have to use OpenAI SDK, you have to use like people are using all different sorts of things. As long as they deploy them into the Kubernetes clusters in sensible ways, like standard microservices, it's kind of considered fair game. They go through the same SDLC to get into production. But the 0 to 1, as we've seen by all the demos that everyone has, 0 to 1 development, especially with coding assistance now, you're building these agents in no time. Like you can fly them out. Like we have people post on, Dave Glick, posts on LinkedIn all the time about his pitch for all the associates is you want to get an agent a day. People can just like every developer can put out a new agent in a day. Even if it isn't anywhere near that, like, and he's hammering the drum to say, get to that point, even if it's like 10 times slower, it's still each developer is putting one out every 2 weeks. So the agents are coming out rapidly, very easily. The thing that is more concerning to me is not that. It's herding all those cats and finding a way to not poison the context window of the super agents that have to now be like, and now you've got 500 different tools that are talking to backend agents that do 30 different things, but in 4 different ways each, and they're confusing and like running evals in a way that's consistent. This is where things get really messy. we're actually running very, very fast. That's not the problem. The problem is now actually having any cohesion and checking to see when do you have duplication, when do you have low quality stuff, making it right up into the front. And when do you have giant gaps where you're like someone is doing something that is just not multilingual, and all the other things in the main front app have to be multilingual because people that use Walmart are coming from all different sorts of languages. So it's hurting the cats is the bigger problem now versus the actual speed of innovation. Walmart developers are building agents all the time. Now we just got to kind of put them into some cohesive framework, which kind of probably gives you some idea about why I talked about the things I talked about in my talk.
Awesome. Josh, 5 seconds on your comment on it.
I piggyback Jake. I think rise of agents is the rise of point solutions. You have to have a formulaic approach. There is a framework to think about. You should have foundational agents, which have like data synthesis, simulation, which build upon, operative agents, which are very basic and fit inside of a purpose that then link up in daisy chain to autonomous agents. And all of that together is what creates a peer worker. And so I'll tell you the taxonomy that we should be thinking about is that has to be applied at a working team level. And so you should have no more than 8 operative agents, no less than 3. On the autonomous, you should have no more than 3, no less than 1. And so when you think on this level of granularity, it actually forces you to engineer agents with purpose and reusability. There's a modularity architecture that your agentic scaffolding needs to follow. And we use something called a FOAP framework, and the FOAP framework gives you rules and boundaries. And those rules and boundaries allow you to build intelligence that then builds on intelligence that accelerates the innovation, but in a way that combats the rise of agents being point solutions.
Awesome.
That was more than 2 seconds.
Great answer. So Kanika, coming over to you with the question, and maybe you can add to it also. Well, with the rapid rise of AI generated content and profiles, how is LinkedIn enhancing trust and authenticity across its platform?
Yeah, sounds good. So first, I'll respond to your original question of what like companies and big enterprises are doing, and specifically like in LinkedIn, we've like what I really appreciate is that we've developed an agentic playground for any of our engineer to come and develop. And the 2 top things about that is centralized skill registry that we have across the entire organization, as well as discovery. So you don't like the idea is that when you are developing your agent, you do not have to develop skills from scratch. You can leverage existing skills and you can, work faster and build things faster. The other thing that I really like is model discovery as well. Like while our engineers are free to use any models they want, but they should be also able to discover fine-tune models that are already published. And like I said, red teaming exercises and everything has been done and are recommended by company for usage in certain scenarios. But besides that, coming to your next question on, yes, like I think industry and in today's world, we are moving towards a time where it has become really difficult for a normal human being to distinguish, hey, am I talking to a human or am I talking to a bot? It has been like everyone are like knowledge experts now, and the fine line of distinction between, hey, is this content really trustable or not, is becoming thinner and thinner. So for that, on LinkedIn, and I'm sure like other social media platforms and professional networking platforms are also dealing with similar problem statement right now. Specifically in LinkedIn, to help our members identify the authentic interactions, we have launched LinkedIn verifications for all members across platform. If you have a profile on LinkedIn, you can get identity verified today. And if anyone comes to you on InMail and the message looks too good to be true, or you are like, hey, I don't trust this person. Is this really human or an AI bot? Just ask them to be verified. Besides this, another big launch that we are doing on LinkedIn is any content that you see on LinkedIn platform, we'll start showing the C2PA metadata. Basically, the content provenance and authenticity, exactly where it's coming from.
Yes,
Yeah.
Images are already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we are going a step ahead, which means that if you have a LinkedIn profile and you take an image or you create a media file, you can actually use your identity verification on LinkedIn to create that C2PA metadata. So now it does not only show that this media content was created by Kanika Watts, but this media content was created by Kanika Watts, who is verified as a human or a person on LinkedIn platform. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Hamza.
Yep. Marcus, do you have time for one short question?
That's my last one. Yeah. Go
Yep.
ahead.
So security, auditability, and observability, as they become, important critical systems for scale, what best practices can we use to maintain control?
Yeah, it's so interesting you asked that because we have had this issue with a few different customers and a few different agents.
Yeah.
Agents leak secrets. And so all the work that we did the past 15 years, with projects like HashiCorp's Vault and Secret Manager, we like agents will read those values and return those values to who they're intended to go to and others. If you have them coding, they will put these secrets into source control, which you don't want, and they will also share them and answers and responses to people. So I think it's really important to verify the user that is interacting with the agent. That's one aspect, and then I think you have to build automated rules around protecting yourself against code smells. I mean, I don't even know. Code smell is not rude enough. Now I'm talking like an agent. Screw ups. Good to see you again, Jake. By the way, Jake and I have collaborated in the past.
Yeah.
I worked on something he built. So
I just want to say, Jake will just come take a couple of seconds from you also. Agentic browsers is the next crazy thing which is happening in the world right now. And every time there's a new agentic browser, there's a new, way to jailbreak it through prompting, through images, and a bunch of things. So there's so much out there that's happening, and we have to be very, very careful. And we have customers who are like, why can't we do this? And we're like, you need to be careful because you don't know what it does. It's a great demo, but it's really just a great demo at this point. Jake, couple of points from you, and then we'll call an end to the session.
Yeah, I will just reiterate my plea to the protocol developers and framework developers. These kinds of constraints and labeling when data happens to contain secrets, we need to actually label that. That needs to be done at the level of your tool returns a secret or returns data that's got a secret, and you're now going to hand that to an agent who's going to do software development and write code for you. You should know it at the level of building your agent, the fact that you've done that. And that then lets you put checks in to see that it's going to have to go through a separate sub-agent to write your config file that gets stored in like a key store versus the agent that now is going to write your code. And they're done with two separate contexts. So you don't even let it have the place where it's going to write code, it's going to go to Git. Anything that's going to Git, it doesn't have any secrets because that was already written into a separate config file. And you can do this if you start to actually label where the flow of information is tracking things like secrets, PII, PHI. This can be done.
Yep. Well, folks, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. George, Jake, Kanika, Marcus just dropped off. Thank you so much for your time. This was a great opportunity for us, to learn from you. I'm just gonna say this: we are having a in-person conference in March where we would love to have you all for probably an hour-long conversation on what we can build and how we can build it. So thank you again. Thank you for being here.